Hello, and welcome to the Movie Universe. I'm your host, Movie Fan. Today, I'll be talking about Green Acres. If you've never heard of the show, I don't blame you. It's been pretty much forgotten these days, or so it seems. It's basically a show about a lawyer and his wife who decide to move out into the country, away from New York City. Because the lawyer, Oliver Wendell Douglas, seems to think that he is a green thumb and that he'd be better off out in the country, his wife, on the other hand, disagrees because she's a city woman. She would rather be on Park Avenue. However, because she loves her husband, she goes with him anyway. They buy a farmhouse, sight unseen, and big surprise, it's a rundown old shack. To make matters worse, he does not have a green thumb at all. In fact, he is the worst farmer in the history of farming. Big surprise, right? And to add to the comedy, the townsfolk are pretty simple and pretty gullible.
Like one of our recurring characters, Mr. Ziffel has a pet pig named Arnold.
Funny thing about that pig, he understands English, he's treated like a son, and believe it or not, every time he grunts, people can actually understand him. Except Mr. Douglas, of course. And if you think that's funny, try this. His wife, Lisa Douglas, can actually understand the pig too. And if you look at the Douglases, you could tell they do not belong there because Mr. Douglas is constantly working outdoors in a suit, a very expensive suit too. Obviously not the right thing for farming. And Mrs. Douglas, well, she insists on wearing those fancy clothes and the fancy jewelry, even the lavish nightgowns to bed at night. Obviously, she's a Park Avenue girl, but she grew to like it there eventually. So much so that she even named all the farm animals that they have. And the funny thing, she actually did fit in with the townspeople quite well because they were a little screwy. And in a way, so was she. Because she would often say things wrong because she's Hungarian, that was the joke, and the townspeople would make the exact same mistakes without ever having heard her said it. And then there's Mr. Haney, the dishonest local salesman, who was the one who actually sold them the farm. In fact, it was his farm. And throughout the show, he's constantly showing up on cue, selling them all kinds of garbage or trying to sell them all types of useless junk. Some of it works, some of it works for about a minute, and most of it, it's just the kind of junk you would expect. Watching this guy in action, you could tell he's a dishonest salesman. And the funny thing, I swear he's got the entire town bugged because whenever someone's in the market for something, he seems to know about it. It's obviously part of the running joke, but I cannot help but wonder. And the funny thing, most of the townsfolk haven't learned about how dishonest he really is. They still buy from him. Even Lisa Douglas buys a lot of garbage from him. Pretty much for most of the show, it's Mr. Douglas having trouble with farming. Meanwhile, they're putting up with Mr. Haney and all the crazy things that happen within the community. So there's not much to say about it. And the funny thing, it actually went on for 6 years, from 1965 all the way to 1971. So it must have been pretty popular back then. It's not exactly my type of show, but I do see the humor in it. I think what made this show interesting to a lot of people was probably the cast. Even though most of the characters were pretty much, well, nobodies really, they did have quite a few big names in this. Mr. Douglas is played by Eddie Albert, a very well-known actor who did a lot of films like Roman Holiday, The Heartbreak Kid, and even The Longest Day. Mrs. Douglas, I think you would all recognize as the legendary Eva Gabor. Well noted for her famous Hungarian accent, and of course she was in all kinds of TV shows and movies. Most of us would remember her for the Disney films such as The Rescuers Down Under, The Aristocat. Mr. Haney is played by well-known actor Pat Buttram. Most of you would probably remember him for his Disney films. He was the sheriff in Robin Hood, he was Napoleon in The Aristocats, and he was Old Chief in The Fox and the Hound. Of course, most people would remember him being in Gene Autry's movies. The rest of the cast, you wouldn't even know who they are.
But there are two characters you might recognize, the first one being Mr. Ziffel himself. He's played by actor Hank Peterson. Now, if he looks familiar, it's really quite simple. He was everywhere, and I mean everywhere. He was in just about every Western TV show there was back in the day, from Gunsmoke to The Lone Ranger, and he did tons of movies. One other character you'd probably recognize would be Mr. Drucker.
Because he made a lot of appearances on the Beverly Hillbillies and on Petticoat Junction. And funny thing, there's an interesting fact about this show that most people seem to have forgotten. And that's the fact that this show was pretty much the first one to break that proverbial fourth wall. Now, I know there have been a few movies that have done that, but this is the first TV show to ever do this. How did they do it? It's quite simple. There were times that you would see the credits roll by, who's directing it and who was the writer and all that. And Mrs. Douglas would see the names and she'd be like, "Where is all this coming from?" That sort of thing. Of course, it wasn't just her. A couple of the townspeople would even mention about the names that are on the screen. And there's a recurring joke that whenever Mr. Douglas was giving off a big speech, you would hear this fife player playing Yankee Doodle, and everyone would hear that except him. Mrs. Douglas herself would even say, "Okay, fife player, you can stop now. He's done with the speech." I'm not kidding. This kind of thing would happen all the time. There was even one time that she said that he bored the fife player out of the room. That's some good stuff. I don't know who wrote this, but that was genius and very well ahead of its time. It's an okay show, one that you might want to check out if you got the time. You can actually find it every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. on MeTV. Plus, the DVDs are available, so if you ever get the time, you might want to look it up. It's actually pretty decent. And before I go, I do have to say, watch this show and not that ripoff that just came out recently. That is a clear-cut ripoff of this show. You don't believe me? Let's see. A couple that are newlyweds from New York decide to buy a farm and think they can hack it just because they learned how to farm from the internet. But in no time they realize they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? That sounds a lot like, oh, I don't know, Green Acres? Creators of the show claim they did not rip it off of Green Acres, but they're lying. It is clearly ripped off of Green Acres. Like I said, I'm not really into Green Acres, but I despise people who try to claim they came up with something original when they ripped it off of another show. My advice, stick with Green Acres. That has some pretty decent comedy. It's not the greatest show on earth, but it's a hell of a lot better than this pile of cow manure. This is Movie Fan, signing off.